Good afternoon. My name is Michelle McLaughlin. I'm a registered nurse, and I also have my National School Nurse certification. I work here at MESD and have worked here for the last 14 years. I've worked in a total of 15 different schools during my time here at MESD. In those 15 schools, I have served children from ages preschool through age 21. Currently, I serve 5 elementary schools in Southwest Portland. I am here today to talk about the school nurse to student ratio, and specifically regarding delegation. I'd like to start out by talking today about the mission of MESD. On our website it says, "The mission of MESD is to support our local school districts and share in providing quality education for our children and families of our communities." One of the ways this can be done, I think, is by keeping students healthy so they can attend school regularly. This is one of my main priorities as a school nurse. Now let's look at IDEA. IDEA requires that students attend school in the least restrictive environment possible. Historically, students with severe medical needs did not attend school or went to a special school altogether. However, with the passage of IDEA, students with severe disabilities and chronic conditions have been attending school more and more frequently, and now they are being integrated into the regular school population as much as possible. Because of technology and medical advancements, there are more and more students with severe health needs at school each year. These needs include diabetes, asthma, seizures, severe allergies, tube feedings, clean intermittent catheterization, and more. Many people assume that the school nurse is there every day to take care of these students and their health needs. Unfortunately, this is not always true. In the past, there were nurses at school every day to take care of the students. However, today there are simply not enough school nurses to accomplish this task. One of the reasons? Budget cuts. Because of the severe budget cuts, there are priorities in school are being put elsewhere. This is true across the country, but it is especially true in Oregon. Oregon ranks 49th in the nation for its school nurse to student ratio. 54 school districts in Oregon have no school nurse at all. 42 school districts in Oregon have a nurse less than half-time. The average school nurse in Oregon serves between 1,000 to 2,000 students. 21% of school nurses serve between 3,000 and 5,000 students, and 9% of school nurses serve over 5,000 students. I currently serve approximately 2,500 students in my 5 schools. How can we expect our school nurses to adequately care for our students with a ratio like this? The reality is, they can't. So who does take care of our students while they're at school? Because of the shortage and their large workloads, school nurses must find someone to delegate their task to. This can be anyone from a teacher to the principal to a secretary. These staff members must take on the school nurse's duties while they are away, and it's in addition to their regular task for no additional compensation. Unfortunately, there are times when there is no additional staff that can take on these duties. When this happens, the school nurse has to problem solve with the staff and the principal. Unfortunately, it sometimes puts the nurse in a precarious position. Our priority is student safety, and we also want to keep our schools happy, so it makes for a hard time sometimes. What exactly is delegation? In regards to nursing, delegation is when a nurse teaches an unlicensed person to do a nursing task. This is usually done in schools because the nurse is not present often enough to do the task themselves. The nurse must find a person to delegate the task to, and then teach that person exactly what to do for a specific student in a specific situation. Each delegation must be student-specific, and it must not include any part of the nursing process. The end result of each delegation rests solely with the school nurse. That means that it's the school nurse's license that is on the line. Because of this, the nurse must make sure that the person they are delegating to is competent with the task and they feel comfortable with doing the task. They also must periodically retrain and reassess that person to make sure they are still feeling okay with the whole process. Anytime the nurse feels that the person is not capable of doing the task, they must take that task away from the person. If the person feels they are not comfortable doing the task, then they need to tell the nurse that so the nurse can find somebody else. Tasks that school nurses typically delegate include, but are not limited to, blood glucose monitoring, insulin injections, glucagon injections for diabetic emergencies, EpiPen injections for anaphylaxis, administration of rectal medication for seizures, suctioning, tube feeding, and clean intermittent catheterization. These tasks can be daunting and scary for staff. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable doing the task and they simply refuse to do it at all. Delegation in schools presents a complicated issue. Often the school staff do not feel comfortable doing the task required to keep the student safe in school. Can you imagine, you sign up to be a secretary, and then suddenly you are asked to administer a rectal medication to a student who's having a seizure? Or can you imagine having to do blood sugar checks and insulin administration for diabetic students all day long? Or having to do a tube feeding in a button through a student's stomach during lunchtime? This is not what the secretaries have signed up for, and it is beyond what they are supposed to do. Asking staff to do a nursing task is not safe when it is above their normal workload. If a delegatee makes a mistake, it can be severe and sometimes can be life-threatening. A school nurse's expertise is crucial in keeping students safe in school. As a parent, who would you want watching your students while they were at school and taking care of their medical needs? The overworked secretary or a school nurse who's been trained in all of these issues? So how many school nurses do we need? The National Association of School Nurses states that they recommend one school nurse for every 750 students. In 2009, Oregon Senate passed House Bill 2693, and they concur with that there should be one school nurse for every 750 students. Obviously, we are not adhering to that. Where are our priorities? I am asking that the members of the MESD board support our recommendation of one school nurse for every 750 students. I hope that we will encourage our component districts to hire more school nurses as you work on the contracts with them. I would like us to bring our schools into compliance. The students in Multnomah County deserve a nurse more than half-time in their schools. After all, aren't our students our greatest asset? I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come to share this with you today. I will now be available if you have any questions. Thank you.